Y hace unos días le mostramos a usted los operativos que había realizado la justicia estadounidense para desmantelar las redes de lavado de dinero en California entre brokers chinos y el cártel de Sinaloa.
Y ahora el Financial Times ha hecho un documental muy interesante sobre el papel de China en el lavado de dinero del crimen organizado, incluyendo en gran parte el dinero del crimen organizado mexicano. Esto es parte de ese trabajo. El documental viene en inglés, pero lo hemos subtitulado, Jorge.
Para su mejor comprensión, es muy importante conocer este material por la relevancia de la información que se da a conocer. Es un hecho de suma importancia y actualidad periodística. Ya habíamos platicado de este tema con unas detenciones que hizo una banda, la justicia estadounidense, de una banda de grupos de empresas cambiarias chinas clandestinas junto con miembros del cártel de Sinaloa, pero este reportaje del Financial Times lo amplía dramáticamente.
In 2017 and 18, something significant happened. We didn't know why. We couldn't understand why. Suddenly, Chinese money brokers began to control the laundering of Mexican cartel proceeds. And they started to do it for 1% to 2%. Those were charges or broker fees that were unheard of. We believe that the Mexican cartels increased their bottom line, their net profits, by 3 to 5% by simply partnering with Chinese money launderers.
In the 1990s, as China liberalized economically, as Chinese business started moving around the world, a system of Chinese underground banking or money exchange system developed in places where Chinese businesses were expanding, catering to businesses often operating with legal commodities in legal economies, but needing to move money they would not be able to move through the Chinese banking system.
And what these underground banks do is they transfer money according to something that's called mirror transfer. A person, let's say, on the one end of the network will arrive with a sack full of money in cash, deposit it at the underground bank, and then through this mirror transfer, another person will pick up the same amount of money from the other branch of the same underground banking network. The crucial thing about this is that no money has actually been transferred. It's completely invisible to the authorities that might wish to crack down on it. This illicit money finances all kinds of things. It finances shopping sprees by Chinese consumers who want to buy luxury in Europe. It also finances, we have evidence, the international drugs trade, and is particularly germane when we think of the big crisis of fentanyl that's currently affecting the United States.
We had a saying, all roads lead back to Flushing. The reason we said that is we identified command and control, leadership. All these things sort of centered back to Flushing, Queens. This is Mexico, this is the United States, and this is China. The currencies do not cross borders. The pesos, the dollars, the Chinese RMB. Think of billion-dollar pots of each currency in those countries. Let's look at the Mexican cartels. They produce fentanyl. They ship a large shipment of fentanyl to New York to a drug distribution gang in New York. They then sell that fentanyl, and they say they have $1 million that they need to have laundered back to the Mexican drug cartel. They contact the cartel and say, we have $1 million that we want to move back to you. They contact the Chinese money broker in Mexico. That Chinese money broker via WeChat contacts a Chinese broker in New York saying $1 million needs to be picked up. Mexican cartel contacts their drug distribution arm and says this Chinese broker is going to pick up the $1 million. They arrange for that pickup. It's brought back to a stash location where they're collecting drug proceeds controlled by this Chinese money broker. Chinese money broker sees that the money is there, $1 million. WeChat messages the Chinese money broker and says, I have the $1 million. At this point in time, those funds are released to the Mexican cartel. They've now been made whole. Their funds have been laundered for them. That $1 million now is sitting in a stash house controlled by Chinese money launderers. They then get on WeChat or a bulletin board and advertise the sale of those US dollars within the United States. Once those dollars were put on WeChat, Chinese nationals, whether they be back in mainland China or within the United States, want to buy dollars. In this example, he's going to buy $100,000. This Chinese national has been introduced by this Chinese broker in mainland China by this Chinese broker. Before he actually gives them the funds, the transfer is made bank to bank. As soon as that's done, he provides the cashier's check or the funds. He now has the funds. He's done. He's made his money. He's invested in the U.S. We want to talk about the Xishi Lee investigation, and he pled guilty here recently in the Eastern District of Virginia. And he was an amazing money launderer. And he was the first one that we investigated, and we took down his organization. He had a casino in Central America that he had established. He had strong triad links back in mainland China. He traveled there, and he had a sophisticated network within the United States to pick up those funds. And Lee was one of those brokers that was at a very high level. Another component of the challenge, there's not very many Mandarin speakers in DEA. There's not very many Mandarin data scientists in DEA.
The challenge of getting people with good Mandarin skills and Chinese cultural background is that security people are very reluctant when somebody comes in and they do have good Chinese, but they also have an extensive network of relationships in China.